Motivation is a lie we've been sold. A beautiful, seductive lie that keeps you waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. You wake up scrolling through inspirational quotes, watching success stories, waiting to feel ready. But here's what they won't tell you in a motivational speech. The Stoics didn't wait for motivation. Marcus Aurelius didn't feel like ruling an empire during a plague. Epictetus didn't feel inspired while living as a slave. They had something else. Something we've forgotten. Something that doesn't require you to feel anything at all. What if everything you've been taught about achievement is backwards? What if the secret isn't getting motivated, but making motivation irrelevant? You've been conditioned to believe that motivation comes first, that you need to feel ready before you act. That inspiration strikes like lightning, and only then can you move. This is the trap. This is what keeps millions of people paralyzed, waiting for a feeling that never arrives with the intensity they expect. Ryan Holiday understood this, not because he's superhuman, but because he studied the ancient Stoics who faced something we've forgotten in our comfortable modern lives. They had no choice. When your Marcus Aurelius and the Antonine Plague is decimating your empire, you don't get to wait until you feel motivated to lead. When you're Epictetus and your leg is broken by your master, you don't postpone philosophy until inspiration strikes. They discovered something profound in their necessity. Motivation is a luxury, and luxuries make you weak. Think about your own life. How many projects have you abandoned because the initial excitement faded? How many mornings have you negotiated with yourself, waiting to feel ready? How many dreams have died, not from impossibility, but from waiting for a feeling that never came? This is the motivation trap. It's not that motivation is bad, it's that making it a requirement is a prison. The modern self-help industry has built an empire on this lie. They sell you motivation like a drug, pump you full of dopamine through inspiring videos, powerful speeches, dramatic music. And it works for about 48 hours, then you crash. Then you need another hit. You become addicted to the feeling of feeling motivated, rather than addicted to the work itself. This is why most people never finish what they start. They're chasing an emotion, not building a life. But here's what the Stoics knew that we've forgotten. Emotions are terrible masters. They're unreliable, fluctuating, dependent on 1,000 variables you can't control. Your motivation depends on how you slept, what you ate, what message you received, what thought crossed your mind. It's a house built on sand. And you've been told to construct your entire existence on this foundation. Enter the alternative, not the exciting answer, not the Instagram-worthy answer, the answer that actually works. Ryan Holiday didn't become one of the most influential modern Stoic voices because he woke up motivated every single day. He did it because he built systems that don't care how he feels. He writes every day. Not on days he feels inspired. Every day. He works on his projects whether the muse visits or not. He follows a discipline that exists independent of his emotional state. This is the Stoic approach. Duty over feeling, principle over preference, system over spontaneity. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, and I'm paraphrasing the essence here. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being, not as someone who feels like it. As a human being, it's not about what you want. It's about what you are. Your nature demands action. Your character requires consistency. Your principles don't pause when your emotions fluctuate. This sounds harsh to modern ears. We've been taught that forcing yourself to do things you don't feel like doing is somehow violence against the self. That you should honor your feelings, listen to your body, wait for alignment. But the Stoics would ask, who is the master here, you or your feelings? Ryan Holiday's entire philosophy is built on a simple reversal. Discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. Discipline is what makes freedom possible. When you're slave to your emotions, to your fluctuating motivation, to your need to feel ready, you're not free. You're trapped in the tyranny of feeling. But when you build systems, when you commit to principles, when you act regardless of emotion, suddenly you're liberated. Your life no longer depends on whether you woke up on the right side of the bed. Think about the last time you did something important, despite not wanting to. Maybe you went to work when you felt sick. Maybe you had a difficult conversation you'd been avoiding. Maybe you finished a project past the deadline, exhausted, and afterwards, didn't you feel something shift? Not just relief, but a quiet pride. The pride of someone who kept their word to themselves. That's the Stoic high. It's not as dramatic as motivation, but it lasts. The practical application is simple, but not easy. You create non-negotiable routines. You decide what matters. Then you do it whether you feel like it or not. You write daily. You exercise consistently. You show up to your relationships. You fulfill your duties. Not because passion drives you every moment, but because this is who you've decided to be. Your actions define you, not your feelings. Holiday talks about the writer who writes every day at the same time, the athlete who trains regardless of mood, the parent who shows up even when exhausted. These aren't people with superhuman motivation. They're people who've made motivation irrelevant. But here's the question I need you to consider. What would your life look like if you stopped waiting to feel ready? If you built a single system this week that doesn't care about your emotions, what would you choose? Think about it. Let me know in the comments what discipline you'd implement if motivation wasn't required. Now we arrive at the strangest part, the paradox that changes everything. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. You've been taught backwards. You think, first I feel motivated, then I act. But the Stoics discovered, and modern psychology has confirmed, that the causation runs in reverse. First you act, then motivation follows. The doing generates the wanting. Movement creates momentum. Ryan Holiday's own life proves this. He didn't wake up one day feeling massively motivated to become a writer. He started writing. Every day. Badly at first, without passion sometimes. But the act of writing, the physical, repeated, disciplined act, created the identity of a writer. And that identity generated its own fuel. Not motivation exactly, but something deeper. Commitment to who you're becoming. Think about this carefully. When you sit down to work despite not feeling like it, something shifts after the first 10 minutes. The resistance fades. The task becomes engaging. Not because the task changed, but because your brain realizes you're serious. You're not negotiating. You're not waiting for permission from your emotions. You're acting. And the brain, this ancient survival mechanism, says, "Oh, we're doing this. Better get on board." This is why the hardest part of any task is starting. Because you're trying to act without motivation. You're pushing against the inertia of feeling. But once you begin, even reluctantly, even resentfully, the motivation starts generating itself. It's like a flywheel. Impossibly hard to get moving, but once it's spinning, it wants to keep spinning. The Stoics understood this at a profound level. They didn't wait for courage to act courageously. They acted, and courage emerged from the action. They didn't wait to feel virtuous. They practiced virtue, and the feeling followed or didn't. And it didn't matter because the virtue existed independent of the feeling. This inverts everything you've been taught about human psychology. We think we need to change our minds to change our behavior. The Stoics said, "Change your behavior, and your mind will follow." We think we need to believe before we act. They said, "Act and belief will emerge from the action." We think motivation is the cause. They knew it was the effect. Ryan Holiday writes about this constantly. The obstacle is the way. Resistance is the signal. The thing you least want to do is probably the thing you most need to do. Not because suffering is noble, but because resistance indicates growth. Your comfort zone doesn't want to expand. Your old identity doesn't want to die. So it creates feelings, fear, hesitation, lack of motivation to keep you small. But if you act despite the feeling, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself that feelings don't control you. The terrifying implication: you have more power than you think, and that power comes with responsibility. If motivation isn't required, if action creates its own momentum, then what's your excuse? If the Stoics are right, and you can act regardless of how you feel, then every day you don't is a choice. Not a failure of motivation. A choice. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because now we can't blame our emotions. We can't say, "I wasn't feeling it." We have to admit, "I chose not to act. I chose comfort over growth. I chose to wait rather than to begin." But here's the liberating flip side. If action creates motivation, then you're never more than one decision away from momentum. You don't need to feel ready for the whole journey. You just need to take one step. One word written, one rep completed, one conversation started. And that action, that tiny action, begins generating its own energy. I want to thank you for staying with me this far. Seriously, most people would have clicked away by now, returned to the endless scroll of easy content. But you're still here. You're wrestling with these ideas. That says something about who you are. And here's what I'll promise you, the best is still coming. Because now we're going to talk about how to actually build a life where none of this is theory, where discipline becomes your default, where motivation becomes optional, where you become the kind of person who doesn't need to feel ready to act. So how do you build a life beyond feeling? Ryan Holiday would tell you to start with the fundamentals, not the exciting stuff. The boring, repetitive, unglamorous fundamentals that actually create change. First, decide who you are. Not who you want to be when you feel motivated. Who you are, period. The Stoics called this your character, your principles, your philosophy. It's the non-negotiable core that doesn't shift with your mood. Are you someone who keeps their word? Then you keep it whether you feel like it or not. Are you someone who pursues excellence? Then you pursue it on days you feel mediocre. This isn't aspiration. This is identity. And identity drives action far more powerfully than emotion ever could. Second, build systems that don't require decision-making. Every time you have to decide whether to do something, you're burning willpower. You're opening the door for motivation to matter. But if you remove the decision, if you create automatic routines, you eliminate the question. Holiday writes at the same time, in the same place, every day. It's not a choice. It's what happens, like brushing teeth. You don't wait to feel motivated to brush your teeth. You just do it because that's what humans do every morning. Extend that logic to everything that matters. Third, embrace the monotony. This is the part no one wants to hear. The Stoic life isn't glamorous, it's repetitive. It's showing up day after day, doing the same essential work. Marcus Aurelius dealt with bureaucracy. Seneca wrote letters. Epictetus taught the same lessons repeatedly. They didn't have variety for the sake of excitement. They had consistency for the sake of wisdom. Modern culture tells you to follow your passion, keep things fresh, avoid boredom. The Stoics would say, boredom is the price of mastery. Get comfortable with it. Fourth, use external accountability. Even the Stoics knew this. Marcus had his philosophy teachers. Seneca had his correspondence. Ryan Holiday has his daily writing accountability, his publishing deadlines, his public commitments. You can't rely purely on internal discipline forever. You need structures that make it harder to quit than to continue. You need people who expect things from you. You need systems that make failure visible. But here's the dark side of this philosophy, and Holiday rarely talks about this part. When you divorce action from feeling, when you make discipline supreme, you risk becoming mechanical. You risk losing the spontaneity, the joy, the human unpredictability that makes life worth living. You can become so committed to your systems that you forget why you built them. You can become rigid instead of resilient. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. That's a misunderstanding. Marcus Aurelius grieved. Epictetus expressed frustration. Seneca felt desire. The point wasn't to eliminate feeling. It was to not be controlled by it. To let emotion be data, not dictator. To feel what you feel, acknowledge it, then act according to principle anyway. This is the razor's edge. Discipline without becoming disciplinarian. Consistency without becoming compulsive. Acting regardless of feeling without becoming disconnected from feeling. It's a balance. And you'll fail at it constantly. The Stoics failed at it. Holiday fails at it. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is practice. So here's the final framework. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you consume anyone else's thoughts, ask yourself 3 questions. What must I do today because of who I am? Not what I want to do, what I must do. What would the person I'm becoming do in this situation? And third, if I only act when motivated, who am I allowing my emotions to make me? Then you act, not because you feel ready, not because you're inspired, not because conditions are perfect. You act because you've decided that's who you are. And slowly, through accumulated action, through repeated choice, through disciplined behavior, you become that person. Not in theory. In reality. The Stoics have a concept Ryan Holiday uses constantly, amor fati, love of fate. Not just acceptance of what happens, but love of it. Because everything that happens, including your lack of motivation, including your resistance, including your failures, it's all material. It's all part of the practice. You don't need perfect conditions to build a meaningful life. You just need to start, now with what you have. Feeling ready or not. So here's the question only you can answer. Will you keep waiting to feel ready? Or will you accept that readiness is a myth, that the Stoics were right, that discipline isn't the enemy of freedom, it is freedom? If this challenged something in you, if it shifted how you see your own hesitation, then subscribe to this channel. We're not here to motivate you. We're here to show you why you never needed motivation in the first place. We're here to explore the uncomfortable truths that actually change lives, not the comfortable lies that keep you waiting. And here's what I want from you. In the comments, tell me the one thing you're going to do this week without waiting for motivation. One action, one commitment, one step toward becoming who you decided to be. I'll read them. Others will read them. You'll have witnesses. And that accountability will make it harder to break your word to yourself. The next video waiting for you goes even deeper into the Stoic mind. It explores the concept Holiday built his entire career on. The obstacle is the way. How everything standing between you and your goals isn't blocking the path. It is the path. Watch it, not when you feel like it, now, because that's what people who don't need motivation do. They move. The Stoics are waiting for you, not in ancient Rome, right here, right now. In the next decision you make,